Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the latter. Today we're taking a look at Voyage in Time, which was a 1983 release from ALA software and developed by General Masters Corporation. There's not a lot of information about this one online, save for the back of box blurb which has been preserved on Atari Mania, so I shall now perform that for you now. So the back of box blurb promises the opportunity to begin a voyage in time and a voyage through space. A voyage that will take you to the outer limits of consciousness and awareness. Prepare yourself for a battle in a world of unknown dimensions and relativities. Voyage in time, in which you are catapulted into a world of intergalactic battles and torments with the alien residents of a different and violent sphere of hate and destruction. Voyage in Time, a voyage to the edge of life as we know it. So all very dramatic, but I feel that's probably writing a few checks that the game won't be able to cash, but we'll have to wait and see. So let's go play Voyage in Time.
Okay, here we are with Voyage in Time, a game I know absolutely nothing about aside from the blurb I've already read you. So I really don't know what to expect from this. Probably not all that much, but you know, part of the point of the series is to give stuff a chance that might not otherwise get much of a chance from sort of other retro gaming coverage. This delightful theme tune, such as it is, isn't filling me with a ton of confidence, but well, let's press start to play and see what happens. Select level, press select button, beginner. We've got beginner, intermediate, advanced. Press start to begin. I've walked into a tree and died. Okay, so we have to... Okay. So we walk around and shoot the brown things. Those are the aliens, presumably. Can't shoot the big thing. Can shoot that thing. And then I think I remember reading in the instructions that we... There we go. So you then have to go and stand on the big thing to finish the level. Oops. So we then repeat. And while we're playing this, I would like you to remember the bold promises that the back of box blurb left us with. Things of being a voyage beyond consciousness and imagination and all that sort of thing, and because so far, I mean, it's not bad, but I think describing this as a journey beyond my own consciousness is perhaps a little bit of a stretch. But it is ramping things up at a nice pace. There's more of the brown things appearing on each level. And it gradually introduced more and more of the bouncing coloured things, whatever they are. Aliens. I'm just going to assume they're all aliens. And the gradual increasing speed means that you need to pay a little bit more attention to what you're doing. Can you shoot? Yes, you can shoot them. Okay, and then they disappear for a few seconds once you've shot them, and then they come back. So you can be a little bit strategic about it from the look of things. Whoops. But walking into literally anything, including the trees, kills you. So I guess they're poisonous trees. Alright, let's try again. Oh. Dodgy collision detection there. That went straight through that brown thing. Twice. You shoot the trees? No. This goes right through the trees. Alright. Yeah, I mean, this is nothing. This is nothing super remarkable, but it's not a bad game. It's a simple sort of arcade-style game, which probably wouldn't have been all that out of place at the time it was, well, the time it appears to have been released. I'd say it kind of depends on how much they were charging for it, but at this point in video game history, it was not all that unusual for quite simple arcade-style games on home computers to be saddled with fairly exorbitant prices. Like, I've got some old issues of Page 6 magazine that have got some advertisements for a bunch of games that are a bit like this, basically. Sort of simple, early 80s style arcade games for the Atari computers. Maybe you don't have to kill everything on the level. Or do you? I don't know. Hard to determine at this point. But yeah, it wasn't unusual for a game like this to be saddled with like a $24.99 or a $29.99 price point, at least in this country. I mean, I don't know how much of that came from like sort of import fees, because I do know that in the cases where Atari 8-bit games had to be imported from America, they got ludicrously expensive. Like, the original Miner 2049, before that got a UK release, people were paying like £40 or £50 for that on ROM cartridge. And the same for its sequel, Bounty Bob Strikes Back. I mean, Miner and Bounty Bob Strikes Back are fantastic games, yes. But £40 fantastic in the early 80s? That is a lot of money. Like, earlier today, my wife and I were watching some of Rose Tinted Spectrum's excellent Breaking Bad Influence series, where he provides some commentary on classic episodes of the 90s children's TV show Bad Influence, which was focused on computer games and console games and that sort of thing. And during each of the review segments, they show sort of who the game is by and how much it costs and that sort of thing. And there were Super NES games on there. They were costing like 60 quid. And my wife was like, did they really cost that much back then? That's ridiculous. I was like, yep. That's why everyone who owned a Super Nintendo had like 4 games, and that was about it. It's crazy when you think about... Well, prices sort of flip-flop a great deal depending on what the game is, but if you think of the price that it's possible to get some retro games for these days, particularly for platforms where there's like loads of copies of games out there, like the say the PlayStation 2 and the Wii are probably the best examples. You can get games for those for 50p each. It's bonkers. That is cheaper. That is cheaper than budget price games for like the Spectrum and the Atari 8-bit were. Yes, it's perhaps not an entirely fair comparison because we're talking about second-hand copies here rather than brand new games, but still. These days, if you're interested in video games and you're not necessarily interested in being on the bleeding edge of technology, which I'd say is becoming increasingly undesirable in many ways for all sorts of reasons, like DLC and constant update cycles and the completely unwanted push towards NFTs from big companies and that sort of thing. These days, someone who wants to get into gaming, I would actually recommend they buy an old console because you can get the hardware itself for a good price. after a certain point as well, the hardware's pretty reliable. So, like, you buy a Wii now, it's probably in good condition. Well, it might not be in good condition, but it almost certainly works. Let's put it that way. And you pick up games for 50p. Like, what part of that is not a good idea? Anyway, we got a bit off the point there, but yeah. I like I say, I could not find any information about this game online aside from the brief bit of stuff that there was about it on Atari Mania. So I don't know how much this game would have cost. And I'm not a big fan of saying, oh, this feels like a £5 game or whatever, like some people do on Steam, but I don't know, back in these early days I do feel like there was an obvious difference between games that were designed to be premium price products and games that were designed to be the sort of straight to budget releases. The pocket money games, the £2.99 games that you get from Smiths or Boots or whatever. And this certainly feels like the latter kind of game. But, as I say, depending on exactly when it was released, it may well have been that this came out at a time when this was sort of the norm, and charging 25 quid for this would have been the norm. Anyway, I guess my long-winded point is that this would be an absolutely fine budget game. But I think if you pay through the nose for this, you might be expecting a little bit more than what we've got here. Particularly with that ruthless upselling that you've got on the back of the box. Still, that too was nothing unusual. We're talking about a time in the industry when Breakout and Super Breakout were positioned as space epics and not a game about a bat hitting a ball at a wall. So, you know. It was a strange time. You know what, playing this as I talk, I realise I'm not having a bad time here. Like, there's nothing to this game mechanically. It's just move, shoot and dodge as a zillion other games at the period were, but it is solidly implemented. We've got smooth movement on the player and the enemy sprites. So that'll be using the Atari's 4 hardware sprites there. 1 for the player and 3 for the bouncing enemies. Then one of the Atari's built-in missile sprites for the bullets that you shoot. It was possible to have up to 4 of them on screen at once. But here we've only got 1. It was actually also possible to combine the 4 missiles into another player. And that was quite often used in games where shooting wasn't particularly necessary. It was just like if you make a platform game or something like that, it was quite common to use the 5th player that was made out of the 4 missiles. Alright, let's bump it up to advanced and see what difference that makes. Okay, so we go straight to the 3 dudes chasing us. But we start with the very empty field. So it's not just like starting on a later level. We have the objective of an early level with more difficult mechanics. I don't believe we're scoring any more points, though. What was that? That collided with one thing and destroyed a completely different thing. Yeah, there's just occasional little glitches like that in this. But they're not... Oops. They're not really predictable. Which is probably why they got missed. The one thing I will say is I'm not really getting the feeling of a voyage through time. Given that the entire game has unfolded on this blue playfield surrounded by trees. With brown mountains in the background. Not a lot going on here. Unless the flashy effects are supposed to be travelling through time. It's like, oh, you've travelled through time to the exact same place. And oh, look, there's more brown things now. Because it's the future. And as we all know, the further into the future you go, the more brown things there are. Bearing in mind things like pollution and global warming and stuff, that's probably not too far from the truth. Yeah, look, I shot the bottom one there, but the top one disappeared. Come here. Come here, you shit. Sorry, I was being stereotypically British there, wasn't I? Get the bottom one. Bottom. Water bottle. I'm told that's how people think we speak. Because we do. It's as simple as that. I used to get told off by my parents for speaking like that. Look, the alternative of not glottal stopping your T's is sounding posh. Which is something my wife berates me for constantly. Even though she's just as posh as me. She's a vicar's daughter. You can't get much more posh than that. Anyway, I've talked about all sorts of things other than this game because there's not really anything else to say about this game, is there? I mean, like I say, it's not a terrible game by any means. There's just nothing to it, really. What is here is solidly implemented and works well, but that's all there is. And there just seems to be a certain point where it just doesn't get any harder. So like we have the same amount of stuff on the screen. The same number of enemies. Because by virtue of the fact that it's using the Atari's hardware sprites, it means there can't be any more than 3 enemies. Three enemies of that type, I should say. If they could have done like a software sprite or a character-based enemy or something like that, but no, that's what they went with, and that's what we're stuck with. Let's see if we can beat our high score. Oh no! Oh, I have beaten it. Good. Now I can die happy. Let's just see how far we can go, though. Yeah, I feel like we sort of reached a limit as to how much stuff is appearing on screen in each stage. Whoops. And it just doesn't seem to be getting any harder now. So we got the same time limit, we got the same number of enemies, we got the same number of things on the screen. We got the same tendency to just wander into things. Anyway, I think that's probably everything we need to say about that game for now, isn't it? So, not terrible, not amazing. I'm not going to recommend you rush out and play this for yourself or anything like that, but it was inoffensive. It was inoffensive. That's about what I can say about it, really. Anyway, we'll leave that there. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.